Welcome back, guys. Time for another Warcraft Total War faction preview, and this time we are doing the Forsaken, and this is a pretty interesting faction. It's the first undead faction that I'm doing a preview on, and I think it's also the first undead faction that I did a campaign on, because I played the Forsaken first, and then much later on I played as the Scourge. One thing that's true for both the Forsaken and the Scourge is that their units always have extremely good morale. They're basically unbreakable because they're supposed to be undead. They're supposed to be, not afraid of death. They're undead. They've already died. They don't feel the pain, I guess. And in the case of the Scourge, all their units are, slaves of the Lich King, so they don't even have a will. And so because of that, they have a pretty interesting playstyle. You can put them in situations which would normally make your units lose morale and start routing, running away. And with these guys, even if it's a very weak unit, like for example these ghouls, they will fight to the death. And that can be very useful against some factions. So without further ado, let's get into it. Let's do the ghouls that I mentioned, and they're a pretty bad unit, but early on, they're very cheap. They have this frighten nearby enemy infantry unit, and like I mentioned earlier, because they're undead, they're unbreakable. So in the beginning, if you use them in a smart way, if you use them as, literal cannon fodder, these guys can be used very effectively. But once you can recruit better undead units, I would say they're not worth it. Then we have the Dread Guards, and these guys are pretty good. Really solid infantry, especially for this price, 570. 12 attack, 18 defense, that's really good. They even have armor penetration, which is interesting because they're using one-handed swords, so usually that weapon doesn't have armor penetration. And then also, don't forget, because they're undead, they lower enemy morale, and their own morale is unbreakable, so that they're really, really good. Then we have the skeleton soldiers. They're pretty bad. They don't even have the ability to frighten enemy units. I would say avoid recruiting these guys unless you're really desperate. Then we have the undead sergeants, and these are pretty solid spearmen. The attack is low, however they're very cheap. They can do the Sheltron, I think so, Shelthrom formation, which makes them even more effective against cavalry. And yeah, they don't lower enemy morale, they don't frighten enemy units, but they're pretty good. And remember, they're unbreakable, so they will literally fight to the death because they're already dead. And then we have the skeleton spearmen, which are an inferior version of these guys, so only get these guys if you have no choice. Then we have the undead halberd, and you can put them in spear wall formation, which is really good, but their attack is low. Oh, and they're effective against armor, so definitely better than regular spearmen. And of course, they're good against cavalry as well. Then we have the human skeletons. These guys are completely useless. Like, never get them. Even the ghouls that I mentioned earlier are better than the human skeletons. Just totally useless. Then we have the undead soldiers, and they're actually kind of pretty bad. 7 attack, 7 defense, no special ability. But I guess they're cheap. But as soon as you can recruit something better, I would recommend against recruiting them. Then we have Death Guards, and I think this is a special unit exclusive to the Forsaken. They're really good. 13 attack, 18 defense, and they have 2 hit points. And they lower enemy morale. So really, really good infantry. Definitely worth recruiting. And they're a little bit pricey, but I would say it's overall it's worth it. Then we have the undead champions, and these guys are pretty good. 10 attack, it's a bit low. However, they have the armor penetration trait, and their defense is not bad. So definitely worth recruiting. And then these really cool looking guys are of course the dismounted Death Knights, and these guys, even though you only get 40 of them, I would say they're worth it because they have high attack, really, really high defense, 3 hit points, and then on top of all that, they have armor penetration, and their presence lowers enemy morale. So they're really, really good. I use them a lot as shock troops to, you know, climb up ladders and easily take over walls. They're really good at that. And then we have speaking of OP units, we have the Abominations. They're really good as well. 25 attack, extremely good. 24 defense and 7 hit points. And despite being really, really strong, they're still classified as heavy infantry, which means just like the dismounted Death Knights, you can use these guys as shock troops to take walls, to go up ladders. They're really good at that. Very, very strong, but very durable. And they also lower enemy morale. It's a shame that they don't have armor penetration because they are using these huge axes, but maybe that would have made them a little bit too overpowered. Really, really good unit. They cost 4K, but it's definitely worth it. Then we have the skeleton archers, and there's something interesting about them. Their stats seem very low, but whenever I use them, they were very effective, and I think the reason why is because you get so many of them. You get 175 archers. That's very high. That's a lot more than the archer units of other factions. So their missile attack is only 5, but so many arrows are flying at the enemy that it ends up making them pretty effective. Also, they're very cheap, 800. Very good. They're the unit that I mostly use to garrison both my Forsaken cities when I play as the Forsaken, and also my Scourge cities, because the Scourge have the same unit. Very good defensive unit. Next up, we have a really special unit. Only the Forsaken can recruit them, and they are surprisingly good. The Dark Rangers. So they inspire nearby troops. That's kind of actually worthless because the undead don't need inspiration, but whatever. Armor penetration, long range missiles, good defense, high attack. But these stats are a little bit misleading. This unit, in my opinion, is actually even better. It might be one of the best units in this mod, and I was really surprised when I used them. And actually, at the end of this video, I might demonstrate what I'm talking about. But they're really, really good. Then we have the Banshees, and this is also a really, really good unit. Just like in the previous video that I made about the Burning Legion, these are spellcasters, but they're very durable, and that's really rare. 12 missile attack, which is pretty good considering you get 30 of them. 26 defense, like that's extremely high for a spellcaster unit, and 3 hit points as well. And they lower enemy morale. Like, the Banshees are really, really good. Some of the best spellcasters in this whole mod. Then we have these guys, the Apothecaries. They're pretty good, but kind of typical spellcaster unit, like mid-tier. Oh yeah, I would say mid-tier spellcaster. Not as good as the Banshees, because you get more of them, and the Banshees are very durable. Like, they can easily hold their own in melee range. That's what made them challenging whenever I would fight against an undead faction. I would think like, oh, the Banshees, they're squishy, I can take care of them. But nope, they can hold their own. Next up, we have the Skeleton Raiders. They're pretty weak, honestly, pretty bad. But I think they are very fast moving. So that's one good thing about them, like flanking the enemy or running down enemy troops. Um, yeah, yeah, but not really worth it. Then we have the General's Bodyguard of the Forsaken, and they are very good. They're very good General's Bodyguard. They're not spellcasters, of course, but they have a lot of good traits. 11 attack, 24 defense, very durable, 2 hit points, and they lower enemy morale. Just really good General's Bodyguard. And then last but not least, we have the Skeleton Horse Archers. And they're okay. Not that bad, but not the best unit. So now I'm going to do something special that I haven't done in previous videos because I really want to show everyone how good the Dark Rangers really are, because they're one of my favorite units in this mod. So we're going to send them against these dismounted paladins, and dismounted paladins, they have high defense, they have 3 hit points. Like they're like the tanks of the mod, some of the most well defended, highest armor units in the mod. And let's see how easily the Dark Rangers will take care of them. Let's do this. Why is he running away constantly? Alright, okay. Look at this. Look at that. Insane. See? They're very special, and I have a theory about it. I think they have the accuracy of a good archer unit with the damage of a spellcaster unit, and I think they might be unique in that. And whenever I would use these Dark Rangers, if I would have a couple of stacks of them, they would absolutely destroy everything. And also, because they count as an archer unit and not a magic unit, their ammo runs out a lot slower than spellcasters. But they do as much damage as spellcasters do. It's crazy. So, if you ever want to try a really OP unit, just recruit a lot of these Dark Rangers and you will feel very strong. And yeah, that's it for today. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Give it a like if you did, please. Helps the channel. Subscribe if you want to see more of these, and I'll see you guys in the next one.